to our show, Exjaw, which means in our days. Today we have two amazing guests from the military schools. And now I'm going to let Bisola basically question you, our guests. Bisola, over to you.
Hello, nice to be back again. Okay, so I just wanted to give an opportunity to Liz and Kevin, our guests, to let us know, what they're up to now. I know Liz engages in, I think, trainings and things. If you just let us know what you're into, as well as Kevin, the kinds of things that you deal with. Hence,
Sure.
our invitation to come on the show. So go ahead, Liz.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I actually wear a lot of hats. A multifaceted professional. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Korgba Investment Limited. Korgba is one of the leading real estate developers in Nigeria. We develop smart homes. So I'm the Chief Operating Officer for that venture, and I also run a knowledge management organization called Ever Right, and in that organization we engage in, like you said, training, strategy formulation for organizations, and HR headhunting, that kind of thing. So that's basically what I do. And also, I'm a published author. I have 4 books to my credit. All of the books are available on Amazon. So I write a lot, and I like to keep busy. I like to engage with people. And I'd like to also interject here that I wrote a book. And the reason why I'm still talking about this particular book is because I'm a cancer survivor. I survived breast cancer. So I wrote about my experience in a book, My Healing Playbook, and that's also available on Amazon. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Great. Great. Okay, that's awesome. I am aware of that, and I want to congratulate you once again, and to say, things will keep getting better, and we'll keep you in our prayers. Okay.
Thanks.
And okay, so Kevin, you can go ahead.
Okay, so at the moment, I run an international year 1 program for the University of Roehampton here in London.
Okay.
And I also teach. I lecture there as well. I'm a business lecturer, but I'm also a certified John Maxwell leadership speaker, trainer, and coach. So I do a lot of that through my own company called Lead Global. So I do that for various organizations, youth groups, and so on and so forth. And interestingly enough, Liz and I have collaborated on quite a number of things in terms of training. We've co-authored a couple of books as well with a few other authors over the lockdown period, Knowing When to Quit, and what was the other one, Liz?
Lessons from the lockdown.
Lessons from the lockdown. Yeah, so we've done a bit of that. So I do a lot of corporate training as well.
Okay.
So, but that's my space at the moment. I'm a people development person. But prior to that, I've been I've done quite a few other things in the business space and corporate space as well.
Seems
that's great.
Seems
That's
like
good
you
to
all
know.
turned out well at the end of the day. Sorry, Bisola, over to you.
That's fine. Fantastic. That's good to know. Okay, so I would just like to obviously this is a program, going back in the day to share our experiences, but would also like to ask certain questions and pick your brain on certain issues that we think would help, whether AFMS or AFGMS directly or indirectly, and to see how improvements can be made. So I will start with Liz first. And my question is that in view of the happenings and things that you hear about secondary schools in Nigeria these days, what, in your opinion, is the extent to which the school is responsible for the upbringing of a child? In your opinion, do you think that responsibility should be dumped on the school? Or do you think that it's more on the parents, or what percentage do you think, and to what extent do you think the responsibility of the schools should be?
That's an interesting question. It's also a very difficult question to ask, because to answer, because we're 2 different generations, the way we were brought up is different from the way kids. Our makeup, our psychological our makeup, our psyche is different. You know, the way we think is different. So I remember in those days, our parents did not really have to worry so much because they knew that we're learning so much. And the school, I can only speak for Air Force Military School, Air Force Girls Military School. Our parents were aware that the school weren't just teaching us academics, they were giving us life skills. You understand? So my parents, and I'm speaking personally, were not so worried about what I was doing with my time because they knew that the school was setting me straight. Now, coming to this generation, they don't have the luxury that we had of structure. Yeah, they don't have the luxury of the mentality and the psychology that we have. I'm not trying to denigrate them in any way, but they're a bit more entitled. Yeah, we were not like that. They're a bit more entitled. So I can't say that I can't say, oh, the school is responsible or the parents are responsible, but I know that there has to be a partnership. There has to be a partnership because in this generation, every little, if you give any leeway you give, these kids will find something either on social media or when they're talking with themselves, they will find something to enter trouble or to create trouble. You understand? So where both my parents were working in those days, right now, and they would know, if they say, sit down here, I will sit down there till they come back. Oh. And I think now that's a function of what AFGM has taught me. I will sit down there till they come back. Nowadays, the child shall sit down there. The child will say, why? The child will tell you about his own fundamental human rights. The child will tell you about how my teacher said that if I sit down for too long, my back will pain me. In fact, the child will tell you that why are you asking me to sit down? Don't you know I have ADHD? You know? So,
and sorry to interject. So Liz, I was just gonna, do you think that is as a result of the fact that, okay, well, our school was unique in the sense that we didn't pay school fees. Yeah. The school was free and all of that. If you compare that with schools these days, where they pay, you know, parents dole out millions of naira as school fees, and, you know, a teacher is probably trying to correct a child, and the child is, look, do you know my school fees is more, can pay your annual salary, you know, things like that. Do you think that's, you know, I don't know. I mean, you mentioned it that, you know, our generation is different, but
even
like,
if we were paying $1 million during our time, we would never, it would never have crossed our mind to run our lips to our those officers. Because don't forget, right? Don't forget, we saw them as gods. They were right. Now, a lot of times when I sit down with my classmates or my juniors and we talk about things we experienced, we now say in today's world that could have been seen as abuse.
Yeah.
But in those days, it was setting a child straight. I will never forget the day something happened and Flying Lieutenant KZ Hassan got a hold of me. KZ Hassan, otherwise known as the Undertaker, he got a hold of me, and she took me to their chalets, where their accommodation, and there are trees. There's a massive tree in front of her house. These eucalyptus trees we had in school, and this woman is massive. She brought down a branch. She didn't bring down a twig. She didn't bring down a stick. She didn't bring down a switch. She brought down a branch, right? Now, she was correcting me because in her mind, I had done wrong. In my mind, I did not do wrong. Go till today, I didn't do anything wrong. Anyways. And this woman started to hit me. She was lifting that thing with both hands and going like this, as in over her head and hitting me. And I fell down and I was rolling. And it went on until I could not move. And I went into shock. They had to call an ambulance to take me to MRS. I didn't die. Yeah. Now, come visiting day, my mother came. And KZ Hassan said, yes, that this is what she did. Do you know what mother said? She deserved it. Betrayal. Betrayal. Now, this generation, the mother would have come, removed her gele, tied it around her waist. Sometimes, do you know who her father is? Do you know who are you? You silly officer. And my mother was like, you are getting trained. You are getting trained. And I think that now, in hindsight, no one should beat a child like that. No one should beat any human being like that. You understand? No one should do that. But that happened. It happened to me. But I survived. Did it make me worse? Did it make me better? You understand?
You turned out an author.
I turned out an author. Exactly. I maybe not because of KZ Hassan, but in spite of that. And I think that is one thing I'll put forward that school did for me. It gave me resilience. It gave me resilience. Because a lot of us, there are things that had happened to us while we were going through that school that were not exactly right. One person will commit a crime and the whole squadron will serve punishment. And that's wrong.
Sorry,
well, do you know
that when you say wrong, is that wrong by today's standards, or did somebody create new standards? Because
it's not acceptable. Everybody should carry your own
in this present day of individuality, yes, everybody is responsible for their own actions.
For their own, yes.
Okay, I think I get you there. It's just that when they were building us, they actually, one of the key things I know for sure, and I've seen it for generations, is that you were actually torn down, your individuality was taken away from you, and you were actually rebuilt as a group.
Yes. Okay. And so that's why I said, like, one thing I wanted to say is now, when I'm in a group dynamics has changed for me. I now bear responsibility, and I make sure everybody bears responsibility. You understand? And in every leadership position I've been in, that has been my default. We must all work as a unit. If we suffer as a unit. And people from other areas, other schools, other experiences, they don't quite understand it. But I always tell them, this is how teams win, when we are a cohesive units. And that is one thing that has been brain tattooed into me.
Awesome.
But don't you think you can also look at it, well, just like you said, from the positive perspective, that it helps you to work as a team. It helps your team, it helps you.
That's what she said. She said it has.
Yes,
exactly.
It's a strength.
Yeah, but initially she was saying that, like someone offends and then everyone gets punished for it. I mean, that was the whole idea. They wanted you all to be upright.
I was juxtaposing, and I was saying that this is what we experience, and this is how it has framed me now.
Oh,
yeah.
And I actually think that is one of the reasons in every position I've ever found myself in as a leader, I have always come out as the leader of the most high perform of the best teams, because I learned from these are things that people learn when they're in their 20s. And you're now teaching children at the age of 11, 12. Yes. So they become very good at it.
Awesome.
Okay. Because part of their DNA.
Awesome.
Kevin, can we hear your thoughts on that as well? I mean, like, what's your opinion? What's your take on that before I then go into the other questions? Sorry.
I think I'm on the same page as Liz, because if you think about it, it has to be a partnership in terms of, I think as Africans generally, a lot of our traditions and cultures we've moved away from as a result of a lot of the influence, technology, the internet exposure, traveling, all of that. And one of those particularly is that it takes a village to raise the child, right? If you thinking about parents and thinking about school, once a child goes into secondary school, at least when you are going into boarding house, a majority of the time is spent in the school. It's only holidays you spend at home. So effectively, the school is raising you. Prior to that, your parents spend the most time with you, right?
Yes.
In a sense, because even primary school, you go to school in the morning at 9 o'clock, you're back, at 3 or 4, you spend a few hours playing, you go to bed. The only time your parents spend time with you is the weekends. So even then you're spending a lot of time in school. But whatever the parents put into the children between 0 and the time they go to secondary school will come to bear and will be tested when they go into secondary school, because that's when all the influences come, the peer pressure, all of that, right? And so I don't think it's as easy as, is the responsibility of the parents or is it the responsibility of the schools? But from a legal perspective, and I'm no lawyer, but from a legal perspective, a child is in a school for a particular period of time. You are legally responsible for that child. You're legally responsible for everything that goes on with that child, whether legally, illegally, morally, academically, whatever. Right? So if something happens to that child in that particular period of time, the school that will bear the responsibility. You can't, there's a reason why, if you're in a leadership position or if you're the CEO of a company, if the company is not doing well, doesn't matter what's going on downstream, the buck stops with you at the top. Right? So a school cannot say, oh, it's not our fault, it's the way the child was raised. Right? And the parents as well can't say, well, we raised our child well, it's the school's fault.
Okay, got it. Okay, fine. Thank you. So just to continue with you, Kevin, sorry, I'll just quickly run through this. Like, it's a threefold question, just quickly, so we can move ahead to our fun fact. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the issue of I'm sure you hear so many stories these days, gangs, cultism in secondary schools? Back in the day, we only heard about those in higher institutions. Now it has trickled down to secondary schools. What are your thoughts on these things going on in secondary schools these days? Also, what are the measures you think can be taken, whether by the government or the authority of the school itself, to minimize it or even eradicate it completely? And then, lastly, what steps do you think a child can take if they are approached with such by their fellow schoolmates or their classmates or whatever? So it's like a threefold question. If you just quickly run us through your thoughts on those questions.
Okay, well, I think it's actually directly connected to what we've just talked about in terms of how the children are raised as well. And I think a lot of parents have abdicated their roles. And by that I mean, there's I recall a time when a lot of parents used to say, oh, don't just leave the child alone, that's how we do it in Jan. What does that mean? It's I never really understood that. So there was almost this pride that your child says hello instead of good afternoon, uncle. And that's those are the polite children. Then they're the ones that you walk into the room, they look at you, they carry on playing their video game. They don't even acknowledge the fact that somebody senior to them has walked into the room. Now, it's not seniority for seniority's sake, but it's inculcating into a child respect, responsibility, all of those things that we've taken for granted. And once you take away the foundational building blocks, the whole house comes crumbling down. And that's precisely what has happened. That's why cultism has been able to trickle down into secondary schools. Because now, in our days, my parents, I wouldn't even go and tell my parents that I was whipped in school, because I would be worried that they would whip. The first question would be, what did you do?
What did you do?
Right? And as you start narrating the story, maybe the number of strokes you're going to get from your parents will be determined by the story that you tell, right? So we were allowed to be disciplined. And connecting that to your, what should be done or what can be done, I think a lot of the things that we went through should never have happened. I think a lot of it was excessive, right? But the thing that never happened was that in our days, I actually don't have any memory of any story of children dying in schools. we were punished extremely, you know, the corporal punishment. Ours was sergeant, flight sergeant, warrant officer punishment. It was extreme, but nobody died, right?
Even
I have
died, 5% casualty was allowed.
And that was in the military school, but even the non-military schools, even the secondary schools, in those days, there was rarely any stories of children dying, right? Or things like that happening. So I think there's a moral decay has come into our society that we have allowed to fester. And this is the result. And it's only going to get worse, because if we say the children are the future, then God help the future, because these guys are going to then take on the leadership positions. Liz said something about entitlement, and that's very, very real. There's a generation of entitled children, but take it a step back. There's a generation of entitled parents that are raising these children. No, how can anybody talk to my child? You will don't say anything to my child. I mean, parents going to school to beat up teachers and all of this, not even for whipping their children, but for verbally castigating the child for doing something wrong. A parent turns, what are you telling that child? Right? What are you teaching that child?
Yeah.
So when all of those sorts of doors are open, there's fear. Now, I'm saying this because a similar thing happened, because I'm based in the UK now, a similar thing happened here in the UK. Over the years, because of child abuse, they brought in laws to protect children. And so it went from one extreme to the next. So parents couldn't discipline their child. As a matter of fact, in Scotland now, you're not allowed to spank your children. They're trying to bring the law into the UK, into England as well. Teachers, forget it. You wouldn't even try it. Even the police. So children would be telling the police, you can't do anything to me. I'm a minor. And what that bred was, there was a time in London when if there was a group of teenagers on one side of the road, you would see all the adults crossing to the other side. That's a direct breakdown of society. Now, I used to have a lot of pride that at least if things get too bad here, I can take my children back to Nigeria, where we still have some semblance of, oh boy, how that has changed. So we've allowed a lot of things to degrade what was one of our strongest points was the discipline and the culture that we had in terms of, you know, authority, in terms of knowing what was right, what was wrong, right? We've allowed a lot of that to degrade. Now for children, there's also, like I said, technology exposure. They've been exposed to all sorts of things. The internet has made, of course, as we all know, it's a double-edged sword. It can be used for fantastic, amazing things, but it can also cause all sorts of issues. And so they're exposed to all sorts of things now. So what we saw as peer pressure, they are getting peer pressure to the nth degree. It's just on another level. Theirs is global. It's global peer pressure, right? And that falls on the shoulders of, you know, a 9, 10, 11-year-old. That would really test. It doesn't matter how well you've brought up your child, that child will be tested incredibly with what is going on today. So like Liz said, it's a completely different time. And what that means is us as parents need to adopt completely different systems. And what those systems are, we don't have time for that, because it's a whole, there's just so much learning, unlearning and relearning that needs to be done.
All right, so thank you so much for that, Kevin. Liz, you already touched on the topic, but like, so just a quick one. So if in the case that, you know, a child is approached with such, you know, maybe from the classmates and all of that, what do you think is just a direct step that the child can take to help the child?
For me, one of the things, I don't have kids, but I've helped raise my sister's kids. One of the things I've made them aware of is that even if you can't tell mom and dad, you can always come and tell Auntie Liz. Yeah. And don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to stand out. I tell them stories about people who have who have chosen to stand separate from the crowd. So you don't have to do everything everybody is doing. You understand? And these kids need to, the thing about peer pressure is that this need to feel cool, to be cool, right? You need to demystify that coolness. My nephews are very techie young men. So I tell them stories about, I tell them stories. I show them Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is not cool in any shape or form. He only became cool after Facebook. Elon Musk was never cool. Look at all of the geeks that are running the world. Jeff Bezos was never cool until he became a billionaire. You understand? So my nephews are very comfortable to stand and run against the grain. Because after all, like one of them will say, I'm the next Elon Musk. So is that we need to build that confidence in them. Yeah. And have it, so parents, even if your kids can't, like they tell the kids, if you tell your mommy, if you tell your daddy, I will kill you and I'll kill your mommy and your daddy. And in these children's mind, they're protecting mommy and daddy. But this person did not say if you tell your auntie, and if you tell your uncle. So have someone that they can talk to. You understand? Have an auntie and an uncle they can talk to. And I'm the auntie that can go to war. Yeah. And bring it. And I do bring it.
Bring your warrior training to bear.
Yeah. It takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. Yes, absolutely.
All those teachers, all those racist teachers in Scotland, because my nephews grew up in Scotland, they know me. They know me. Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. We're really running against time. So, Gake, you want to take on the fun facts and, so that we can just run.
Fun facts. All right. So, your best day in the military school that you recollect. Your best day. Okay. 3 each. Who wants to go first?
Kevin, go first.
Kevin.
Oh, my best day?
Best 3 days while you were in the military school.
Okay,
like
my best 3 days.
You remember, you never forget, maybe a story.
My best, well, it's not a story, but my best 3 days were the 3 days to my POP.
Okay.
And my best day was my POP day.
So you couldn't wait to get out?
I couldn't wait to get out of there.
Now from that time till date, when would you say you actually had to draw on what you learned from military school to overcome? Well, first of all, have you experienced any day like that? And then just walk us through that.
I think every single day, I draw on my FMS training. And by the way, even though my POP day was my best day, if I could turn back time, I'd go back, because it has turned me to who I am. As part of my training, I ask participants to self-reflect. So I asked them to write something about themselves. Just write something about who you are, right? So I wrote one about myself, and one of the lines in there says, I'm a product of Air Force Military School. Throw me to the wolves and I'll come back leading the pack.
Amen.
Right? And that's always been it doesn't matter how low, and I've been at points, in my life where I was so low, there was no money, there was no food, I didn't know what to do. I went and delivered pizza because I still needed to live, right? I went and worked for Hermes delivering parcels for 50, 60p per parcel. Do you know how many parcels you have to deliver to make 500 pounds, right? When your rent is about 1,000 pounds, right? But that was the Air Force Military School resilience that Liz talked about. That was because you just have that strength in you that you can draw on whenever things become like really rough. So every single day I do that. In my, I lead a team now. It's the exact same thing, exactly what Liz described. It's about service. You're servicing, the team need to see you doing what you're asking them to do. That's the best way to get them to do it. And FMS taught me that.
Amazing.
FMS taught me that.
Liz, your best 3 days, and also what will you say, after AFGMS is you basically turned around, had to draw on, what you learned from AFGMS to overcome?
Unfortunately, I don't have a best 3 days.
Okay.
But I have a moment that I will never forget. Now, with everything we know about mental health issues and everything, I'm one, and a lot of people will be very surprised when I say this. People who are very close to me know about it. Um, I speak for a living, and I talk to people for a living. So I anchor courses all over the world and talk at conferences. But I actually struggle with some level of social anxiety. Now, I remember when we were in, and I think I absolutely remember it, in Form 1, and they said we're having lunch with the chief of the Air Force and all the directors. And they all came and we had lunch with them. That memory will never leave me. And that's the one memory I draw on. And I sat down, and I think I sat down across Air Commodore Aja of blessed memory and Group Captain Nabihe, the directors then.
Of blessed memory too.
Nabihe?
Yeah.
Are you serious? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, last week or so.
Are you serious? I didn't hear that. Wow, I didn't hear that. And we didn't just eat and we're eating in front of them. They were asking us intelligent questions.
Yeah.
And we're answering. And that stays with me, that then I would think I was 12. If as a 12-year-old girl, I'm able to sit with directors of the armed forces and hold my own, there is nowhere I can go to and hold my own, even if I'm shaking in my boots inside. So even till today, that is indelible. It's a mark in my mind that I can surmount anything. I can walk into anywhere. And people say, how do you do it? You say you are shy. I'm very shy, social anxiety, but I walk into places and I command the room. And that would never have been accomplished without everything I went through in Air Force Girls Military School. And the resilience of sometimes, I remember then, I'm very bookish, right? So I read a lot. I remember then there's this officer, and she will remain unnamed. And she would always, and it was like cat and mouse. I would hide the books at the bottom of my locker behind my boots. She will find them. To the point where I started to hide my books under my mattress. She would find them and she would seize them. So it was cat and mouse. And I don't know, did she want to make me stop reading?
Were they textbooks or were they novels?
Novels. 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 No? And then this lady, she would berate me in public. She would berate me in public, you know? I remember one time she was berating me in front of some other officers, and then Put Shatter of blessed memory. Put Shatter was like, leave her now. She's a young girl. Don't do that. That's not fair. She's like, what? Look at how she's looking. Look at, and that's just, it could have broken me, but I made a choice. Say whatever you want to say. I will thrive. Now, years later, I started attending a church. Now, everybody will not know who she is. And that woman was in this church. For the first few months, I was petrified. Should I leave this church? Should I go? Should I stay? And I'm like, no, I will not run. Do you know, one time this woman was giving a speech about her career in the Air Force, and she told me in church to stand up. And she said, she's my product. You people say she's this, that, she's my product. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, so I'm your product now. You know, so I don't have anything that's the best 3 days, but I have these points where I picked something, I learned something changed in me. It rewrote my program. All of these things rewrote my program. And then for me, anyone who works closely with me, especially in problem solving, I have something I always say, especially when I encounter a problem that is so terrible, so tough. I always say this: there's more than one way to skin a cat. I learned that in Air Force Girls Military School. There's always a solution. No backing down.
You know, what I'm getting from you and your story so far, and this is the first time I'm actually even hearing details of your story, is that it seems as if knowing, just universe, God, whatever, knowing that right in front of you in future, you will have a fight with cancer. You had the toughest of the training in building the resilience necessary to overcome something. What you described took my own mother away. It took my grandmother away. It took my auntie away. What you went through, and you're here speaking, is what basically robbed me in AFMS as a Form 4 firstborn of my family. I came back from vacation and my mom had passed during the holidays. The whole drama of it, right in my arms. The exact thing that you are speaking about. So now I'm thinking, I'm just looking at the whole story of your life as you talk about it, and I'm realizing it looks like you had the toughest. It looks like you were singled out to be made stronger than the rest. Because you also said you ended up being the provost marshal. That's one person in a set ends up being the provost marshal, which means that you are the police of all. You are the policeman of soldiers. I guess there was something that they saw in you that made them basically elevate you to that, which tells me that somehow you had it tougher, but now roll back many years afterwards. And then, of course, the toughest that life can deliver, right? A signature of death is given unto you that, all right, battle this. And you won. When I think about it, you needed more training than the average person in order to be able to be here to speak.
True.
Amazing. So for me, everything comes together. That's how I see it. Again, I'm always the optimist, but that's how I see it. Right?
Spot on. Spot on.
So who else? I think Kevin has given his, you have given yours. Anybody wants to say a couple of final words before we round this up?
I would like to say something.
Yes, please.
Yes, schools may not be what they were when we were going to school in the 90s. But I want to encourage every parent that is watching this. A lot of parents are saying, move your children out of boarding schools and put them in day schools. They're not safer in day schools. If they're predators, will find your children wherever they will find your children. However, there's some structure and some backbone that your children will learn in a military school. So I recommend a military school. Yeah. Another thing about Air Force Military School, Air Force Girls Military School, the alumni look in on what's happening there. So I want to recommend, we fought tooth and nail when they changed the Air Force Girls Military School to a comprehensive school. We fought tooth and nail, we lobbied for them to change it back to a military school. Because where else will you find children, girls, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, knowing how to handle weapons? And I want to also recommend men. You're looking for wives? Come to Air Force Girls Military School.
I want to add a little bit of a disclaimer to that find a wife thing, right? Only real men should go to Air Force Girls Military School to look for wives.
Yes.
Only because if you cannot handle a strong woman, if you're threatened by a strong woman, that's not, as a matter of fact, don't even come to Jos.
Yes.
Just stay at the borders, find somewhere else, don't come to Jos. Right? Because that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Actually, so I'm just thinking I'm thinking of the average person. They will say, you come look, you gonna go marry soldier. We don't want you since they make you know they do pass your power. You don't go marry soldier.
But think about it. The way the world has changed. Every man needs a woman who can stand shoulder to shoulder with him.
Absolutely.
So there are some things I always say when I'm joking with my Exjaw, that look, that when it comes to entrusting my life, that Exjaw has your back. Although I jokingly say love them from far. But
I'm actually proud to say that Kevin is one of my best top 5 friends in the world. Kevin.
Yeah.
I hardly do anything or embark on something new without letting him know. And that thing about an Exjaw having your back, Kevin's always had my back, and I've always had his back.
Absolutely.
That's true. And then there are some sets that did not meet the girls at all. And so they kind of now are meeting them. So some of them were like, this one that you want to go and bring Exjaw. So I jokingly have, actually, I don't know if it's a joke, because there was an award given to me by Major General Usman Yusuf in his office, where he said, I'm the grand patron and grand president of Exjaw Worldwide. When I went to visit him.
You are not Exjam.
And there's actually a video. I'll post the video so that you can see it, because we recorded it. You know, I was like, well, here you see, I am now. But anyway, so one of the things that happens is that the 80 sets, that's the first set, 81 set did not meet. 82, we were there when you came in, but it was towards the tail end of our living.
Exactly.
Like so we didn't get to interact. So they're like, this Exjam. I usually tell them, just wait, interact with them, you will see. Because so the way I describe Exjam to the person, to an Exjam who never interacted with them, I said they are exactly Exjam. It's just that they are female. And true to it, when they come into a room and the introduction is made, well, he's an Exjam, next thing, this guy who thought that, oh, this would be all princesses, starts realizing that, oh my goodness, these are my friends, so, because the flow just takes over like that. It's the same culture, and you see how that culture, which you don't realize exists until you put everybody in the same room, basically starts coming up, and then people are able to just interact. Very, very easy, the easiest interactions ever. So yeah, that's been my experience with Exjam. Plus the fact that, yeah, I'm the Grand Commander, I accept.
Okay, so we can just round up now. I just want to thank both of you so much. We know that you're very busy people, and I was on your necks just trying to get you on and to create that time and to look for a time that works for everyone. Liz, I want to thank you so much. I know you're extremely busy. I want to thank you for sharing your story, your experiences. We hope that when next we call on you, you'll be willing to honor us with your presence again, to pick from your wealth of knowledge and your experiences as well. And also the same thing for Kevin. Thank you so much. I know you're very busy. It took a while for us to be able to schedule and fix a time. We want to appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing your experiences as well. It's been so nice having you here. We hope that when next we call on you to shed more light on certain topics or discussions that we would like to have, you'll be willing to oblige us. So basically, I'll just give you the floor to share your parting words. We usually sign out with our NAF numbers, so I don't know if Liz wants to go first, and then
let's let the most junior go first. Kevin, go first.
Oh, okay, great.
So all this on this junior, maybe they talk now 1 year or maybe 9 months.
Age before beauty. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I suppose FMS has taught me a lot, and I'll never take that for granted. I am who I am. I have the strength that I have, in addition to other bits and pieces, but they honed it. They brought it out of me. Something that I'll forever be grateful for. And everything I do now, regardless of where I am, is always focused towards giving back to home, to Nigeria, because FMS was Nigeria's gift to me, and I think we should never forget that. There are people that say Nigeria has never done anything for me. If you went to Air Force Girls Military School or Air Force Military School, you have no business saying that, because they give us more than sometimes we even know. So I'm a man of faith, so I always say to people, stay prayerful, stay watchful, plan, prepare. And just go out there and conquer, because that's, we were bred to be leaders, and that's what all of us are, every single one of us. Okay? So NAF number 88/933 Green Squadron signing out.
Thank you, Liz.
So Liz, we'll go with Liz next.
I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I look forward to more appearances or collaborations with Exjaw. What my last word to people, Exjam and Exjaw, don't be a stranger, right? Don't be a stranger. wherever you see an opportunity to connect with an Exjaw and Exjam, grab that opportunity with both hands. Let's pave the way for each other. Let's connect. Let's do great things. Kevin said something pivotal right here. He said, we're bred to be leaders. Don't hide. Don't hide. We're waiting for you. And as much as everything we say, oh, Nigeria needs leaders, Nigeria needs leaders, we need leaders. We need you. So let's all connect. If you are reached out, if Exjaw reaches out to you, please extend a hand, accept, and share your story. And don't hide. Don't hide. Stop hiding. I'll find you. 87/0071. Elizabeth Taylor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Abisola.
Okay, so my name is Abisola Olabode. It's been nice. It's always nice here sharing with your circle, Exjaw, Exjam. It's always nice sharing experiences and having a good time. Once again, I want to thank our guests for coming on to the show, and to our special Ogake, who is always here for us and to take things on. Ogake, we appreciate you. My name is Abisola Olabode, 87/0060.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And this is your show, your favorite show, Exjaw in My Days. And this is Coyote Atobatele, AFMS 82/248, an ex-junior airman of the Air Force Military School, signing off for this week. See you next week.